Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and today it's Taylor's turn to not be in the studio. Don't worry, we're still friends and we'll be reunited on Monday to review all the weekend action. Today, I'll be talking to Zack Goldman. I was first introduced to Zack back in 2014 by the Shin Guardian, and I've been meaning to interview him ever since. Zack is one of the co-founders of Where is Football, a platform which shares soccer stories and images from around the world. He's also one of the co-founders of Common Goal, a digital production, creative direction and brand strategy company that works with soccer teams and brands and encourages them to connect with fans in an authentic way, which isn't as easy as it sounds. This was a really enjoyable conversation. Zack and I talk about this Saturday's LA Galaxy versus LAFC game, the origins of the El Trafico name for the derby, the arrival of Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and even how England are shaping up for the World Cup. I also persuade Zack to do a free consultation, a professional consultation on what US soccer could do better in terms of connecting with fans. I'm sure we all have some thoughts in that regard. I know I do and did, but it was fascinating to hear it from an expert, from someone who does this stuff for a living. Okay, here's my conversation with Zack. I hope you enjoy. So joining me on the phone, I have Zack Goldman. Zack, hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
I've been meaning to talk to you. I was saying this earlier. I've been meaning to talk to you for at least a couple of years now. And now I finally have many, many reasons to talk to you and a long list of topics. If it's okay with you, I want to start with El Trafico.
Let's do it.
All right. So El Trafico is the unofficial, I'm going to say, nickname of the derby between LA Galaxy and LAFC. And I first saw it on your Twitter timeline. And I've also seen you credited with the creation of it, but then I've also seen you quickly deny that. So can you give me the backstory on where El Trafico comes from and also why it works? Because I believe you approved it.
Yes, I will. I mean, yeah, definitely don't deserve any credit for that. I usually don't deserve credit for things in life in general. So this is definitely a good thing to put out there as a disclaimer. I actually don't know who came up with it, and I'm really trying to find out. The first time that people have said that they saw it, and it seems to like link up chronologically, is actually on an LAFC Reddit thread.
Reddit's always the answer, isn't it?
It's usually the place. It is definitely like the origin of a lot of things. And in this case, it seems to match up timeline wise, but I actually heard it in passing. I heard someone say it to me as like a joke and I was like, that's incredible. But I honestly cannot remember like if that was something that they organically came up with or if they had seen it or heard it or anything like that. So I kind of like that there's a mysterious origin story. So I'm hoping not to dig too far in, but I think LAFC Reddit gets that credit from me.
So obviously we all know that jokes are always better when you explain them in detail. So
yeah,
I'm going to assume that it's a play on El Clasico. And also I've been to LA twice. I assume it's just heavy with traffic, but is it about the distance between the LA Galaxy Stadium in Carson and the LAFC Stadium in downtown Los Angeles? Or is it just a general Los Angeles traffic joke?
Like for me, it's a general Los Angeles traffic joke, but at the same time, there is definitely like if you've spent any amount of time in LA, like you kind of know how the freeways match up, and honestly, like that, like the battle of the 110 freeway is definitely like a daily grind that I sit through, and so there's some intricate humor in there in terms of the two stadiums are like basically linked by a freeway that gets pretty jam-packed. But definitely, like, in general, this city, like, sorely needs public transportation, and most of us spend a lot of time in our cars. So I think it's the perfect name for it, and it's super cool that kind of both fan bases have like, agreed to call it that. I think it's super cool.
And how official do you think this is going to be? Like, are we going to see Major League Soccer and LA Galaxy and LAFC using this, or are they going to go with some other sort of maybe I wouldn't be surprised like if there was another sort of corporate sponsored name for the sort of derby and then we're all disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, I really hope that doesn't happen. It's either that or like MLS has literally already started trademarking it, like one or the other. So it definitely will not live on as like a fan-owned component of the culture. Like someone will make some money off of this. I have no doubt about that.
So one of the things I want to put a pin in this to talk about talk to you about later, but you run or one of the co-founders of Common Goal, where you do a lot of sort of branding, and a lot of the work seems to be for soccer clubs. And it seems to me you have this good grasp of how to do sort of authentic, sort of fan-focused branding that really works, right? So, I almost want to get some free work out of you and say, like, is there anything that the clubs could do with this that wouldn't upset the fans or steal the El Trafico name from them, but could also sort of help out in a way? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I actually think that it's kind of the dirty secret of like football clubs on a business level is that a lot of the best work is cooperative, kind of under the guise of rivalry. So I think like there's a lot that LAFC and the Galaxy could do together in collaboration. That would be great. You know, I think like giving a voice to fans in this league is so much of MLS's value proposition is the role that fans play and, you know, how close you can be to a team in this country. I mean, I think LAFC, to their credit, like one of the great things that they have done is they really have put fans at, you know, the heart of their kind of startup culture. And I think that is to be applauded as much as I'm a Galaxy fan, as much as, you know, it's fun to throw shade back and forth. Like they've done a great job with that. And so I would love to see both clubs kind of work to engineer, you know, whether that's a fan game or a way that fans can kind of contribute to the creative around the rivalry, or like there being some kind of shared, whether it's a trophy between the two teams that's kept by the fans, something like that. I mean, like there's a million different routes you can go, but I think you're spot on that like a huge part of this that I'm sure will be built out over time is how the fans play into it. Because even the Galaxy and Chivas, when, you know, Chivas were around,
may they rest in peace.
May they rest in peace, exactly. You know, some would say they're still around and playing in a different uniform. I don't know. Not me. I don't say that. But I think, you know, for that rivalry, I can remember being like 14 years old and I played in a fan game that a local Spanish language TV news show covered at 9 a.m, which was hilarious and like so fun. And we got to play like on the pitch at the StubHub Center, like half kind of 7v7 style. And that was super cool. And I just remember that being like a really standout experience in my soccer life. And it was something that, you know, didn't need to happen, but it really added a lot from the club.
How about this? How about if they did a fan game, LA Galaxy fans, LAFC fans, on the 110 in traffic? If traffic was all at a standstill, like at the beginning of La La Land, you can play around.
There it is. I can't see anything wrong with that. That sounds super safe.
No potential problems, right? What about, I want to focus on this El Trafico thing again for a second. I've seen some people not like it because it's kind of a joke, right? In that, you know, there's some humor in the name. That some people are maybe upset that it doesn't represent like a hardcore fandom if you're making fun of your own derby. And I'm not sympathetic to that. As in, I don't think that's a good argument against it. But do you think there's anything to that like maybe we should take ourselves more seriously?
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I don't mean to sound flippant, but I think like there's not enough fun in football these days. And I feel like if fans are coming up with something that they enjoy and it's, you know, an iconic name that you can kind of throw around and people in the city know about it, you know, under that name, then, you know, you can't really ask for much more than that. But I for sure understand that like people maybe want to build this into something that has, you know, a little bit more gravitas and, you know, a little bit more weight behind it. And that's totally fine. Yeah. But for me, it's El Trafico and it probably will remain that way.
Excellent. Okay, so you also mentioned you're an LA Galaxy fan. I happened to see on your Twitter timeline, you posted some photos of young Zack Goldman sort of meeting his heroes. It was sort of Zack Goldman and LA Galaxy through the ages, right? But I also, correct me if I'm wrong, I may be wrong on this. I have a vague memory of you sort of last year suggesting that, you know, LA Galaxy 2017 was a bad season, right? And you were looking across at what LAFC were building and thinking, maybe there's another team there for me. But now it seems like you're all in on the LA Galaxy. So one, have I got that correct? And two, what happened?
I definitely need to clarify that. definitely would never switch.
Okay.
But something that I still feel, which I think is what I was saying then, is that I think if you are moving to this city or you've never had kind of the experience that I had growing up with LA Galaxy, I could fathom why you would want to, you know, join up LAFC and start something from scratch. I totally get that. You know, I think it's a really enticing proposition to tell someone, you know, you can go basically downtown on public transportation, join a team that has a super cool, you know, logo. They've got, an awesome stadium that's opening up. I totally get that. And
Yeah.
I think they do a good job of explaining that to people and making it seem cool. I think the part that I've always struggled with is this idea of building from the ground up. And for me, so much of my, life growing up in LA, really the Galaxy were a pillar of our local soccer community. I mean, I've been going to games since '96. My family has had tickets forever. I played for a club called Galaxy Alliance, where we had, coaches who came in. We were from the Galaxy, players who came, to coach us with them. We played outside the StubHub Center in, one of the first seasons when the Galaxy moved there. Like all of these things that were super impactful. My brother played on the Rose Bowl field when the Galaxy were there. It's this, for me, it's really kind of entrenched in how I view soccer and how I view the local, community here around the game. And I think for me, there's no question I would never, ever switch, but I can absolutely see why people would. And so I think that's something that the Galaxy have to be cognizant of. And to their credit, I think this season they've done a really good job of telling their story. Since '96 is kind of the tagline that they're going with. They're showing how they've built the culture over time, and Zlatan helps a lot. So it's good.
So I want to talk about Zlatan in a second. I've got his name on my piece of paper on my notes here in front of me. But I wanted to stick on this sort of this community building aspect. It just occurred to me that maybe because it's a little bit en vogue to maybe criticize MLS for some type, for the weird roster regulations and all that kind of stuff. But do you think it's fair to say that the clubs, especially the original clubs, the original teams, don't get enough credit for building sort of soccer communities? Because it really sounds like it was a huge part of your soccer fandom as a youngster.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. I mean, I think MLS, I'm a pretty critical person, and it comes from a place of love. Like there are myriad things that I would have done differently in the local community, like speaking from a Galaxy perspective, from an MLS perspective, and then from, kind of a tertiary, like American soccer grassroots perspective. There's a million things that I would have changed in terms of like how we grow the game in this country, what it looks like, and how we invest. But I do think for me, it was impossible to fathom me having a rich kind of soccer experience in this city without the Galaxy. And I really do feel that, at my core. I can remember, I was 4 when I was actually 3 when the '94 World Cup happened. It's one of my very, very early hazy sports memories is going to the Rose Bowl to watch the U.S. play Romania. My enduring memory from the day is actually getting sunburned, nothing about the game. And, that was a really special moment for me because I finally saw the sport up close. Yeah. Apart from that, when I was 3, 4, 5, these early memories of soccer, when I was first learning how to play, we're at, major indoor soccer league games for the Anaheim Splash. We drove like 90 minutes to watch them play basically at a modified, ice hockey stadium. And it was, that was super great too. But to have the Galaxy was really kind of like, I knew just barely what it was like to not have a team. And so when they finally landed, it was like a really special thing in my childhood. And all of my friends, soccer's brought me such great friendships and such meaningful relationships in my life. And in a lot of cases, it's people from different parts of the city who I would never have otherwise come into contact with, people at different schools, and all of that was really orchestrated through a soccer scene that the Galaxy were, for me, at the very heart of. So, I think there's things that, of course, they can do better, but one of the things that I really think is poorly acknowledged in a lot of places, not just here, is how instrumental a lot of those early teams were in fostering that culture.
So in terms of, growing the culture and sort of being part of the community and keeping fans happy, would you have signed Zlatan Ibrahimovic?
That's tricky. I think something that a lot of people have said, and I agree partially, is that, there's 3 players in the world that you'd sign regardless, no matter what any of the surrounding conditions were, and that's Ronaldo, Messi, and Zlatan. I don't agree with that. For a long time, I think if anyone's, followed me on Twitter or, heard any podcasts or anything like that, I have consistently tried to advocate for kind of investment in sort of a middle salary budget player from South America. Like, I think that's the most valuable player that you can have in this league just because, I tend to watch those leagues a lot, like for pleasure, but also for work. And I think there's some tremendous talent there that, there's a lot of players who would love to come to MLS and make $100,000. And when you look at Zlatan as a comparative, piece to add to the squad, I don't know that on the pitch that the value is there. I mean, maybe it is. Maybe Zlatan comes in and scores 20 goals and proves me wrong, which would be great. I'm not sold on that. But I do think that this is a different circumstance because of LAFC. Like, I'm not saying that the Galaxy signed Zlatan out of playing defense or anything like that, but I do think, this is a way that the Galaxy have kind of wrestled momentum and wrestled headlines away from LAFC. They've gotten an iconic player that they can, add to kind of this incredible, constellation of stars that they've assembled over the years. It really is the club's DNA to push the league forward with these signings. So I think all of that has to be taken into account. And I think they got him at a budget figure that is totally fair. I think it's one of those things where I'm very comfortable and happy with the Galaxy signing Zlatan because I'm totally giving into my emotions. But yeah, I mean, if you ask me to kind of break it down from a rigorous, impartial perspective, of course, I think the money could be used better elsewhere, of course. But I think it's going to be fun. It'll be fun.
So it's 1.5 million a year, from what I understand, right? It's a lot of TAM money. Yeah. It's not the DP money. It's maybe the money you would have been advocating to go and sign a Diego Valeri type character. But yeah. What do you see Zlatan's role being? Because the thing I'm really scratching my head about is it's basically when everyone's fit, it seems to be Ola Kamara, centre forward, Gio dos Santos underneath him, number 10. And it's almost as if, to me, Zlatan is a player who's he's like a 9.5 almost, right? He's like in between those two. So will Ziggy Schmidt try and squeeze everybody in together? Is somebody going to get displaced? Is Zlatan going to be sort of a more off-the-bench part-time contributor? Have you got any sort of insights or just guesses at what Zlatan's role might be?
Yeah, I mean, it's all a guess at this point. Your guess is as good as mine. I mean, I can see it a few different ways. I can see Zlatan playing right underneath Ola and then, Gio being moved out to the wing. I've advocated, honestly, for Gio sitting on the bench for a little while and seeing how we get on because I don't think that he fits perfectly within the team. And I think there is an element of, it sounds super banal, but I think, there is an element of when you bench someone, they work harder to get their place back in the team. Yeah. They have to prove themselves. They're at a position of disadvantage. And I think that there is some of that could be really valuable in our case. I think, part of what I've been really upset about with the Galaxy is that I don't think they've invested well in defense. I think attacking wise, we're going to be pretty fine no matter what. I mean, yes, one piece will get left out, whether that's Gio or Emma Boateng or, Sebastian Lletget, whoever it might be, someone's going to be sitting on the bench for sure. But really the part that concerns me is the Galaxy have spent so much money on, Michael Ciani, Pele Van Aanholt, Rolf Felcher, all these guys over the years. And in a lot of those cases, they're players who, I'm sure the Galaxy have more robust scouting systems than I have, but I can't see the data points that would lead you to sign those players for the amount of money that they're spending. So I'm losing less sleep, I guess, is what I'm saying, over, someone like Zlatan and how he'll fit in, and losing much more sleep over, how have we not invested in a better defensive core, on this team when you already have so much attacking talent.
Right, and they're going to be up against probably Carlos Vela and Marcos Orena in El Trafico this weekend, so you might see some of the seams break for that LA Galaxy defense. What about the idea of Zlatan's health? The one thing that concerns me is it does seem like he's been rushed into playing in El Trafico when maybe fitness does not make that the sort of sensible decision.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's really shrouded in mystery, and I'm always very content to err on the side of caution, especially in a league like MLS where the regular season really it's not saying it doesn't matter. The Galaxy are hopefully going to be involved in a playoff hunt, but I think at the same time, it's a long season with a lot of terrible, road games that you've got to play, whether that's on turf or in heat or, any number of circumstances that aren't particularly great for a 36-year-old with a history of really terrible knee injury. And I think, it's something where I think it's fine to have him make a cameo. I know a lot of people have said Zlatan is, Siggy Schmidt said Zlatan's no mortal. He's a guy who really needs to be, he's even said himself, he needs to be on the field to really feel, like he's being productive. And maybe that's a case for him speeding up his recovery by playing, which is a little bit paradoxical, especially when you're 36. But I think, he knows his body better than anyone else. And yeah, maybe there's a little bit of arrogance that isn't so healthy, and maybe we're not going about it 100% by the book. But I'm excited to see where he's at. I'm excited to see him move, even if it's like 20 minutes at the end. I think he is the kind of player where, yes, we're going to need to be really vigilant in terms of how we use him. But it could be that he's in way better shape than we think, and he just wasn't in good enough shape to play for Manchester United, which, frankly, a lot of players aren't good enough to play for Manchester United these days. It's a great squad, and, we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting.
Fair enough. My final thought on this is all that stuff about his no mere mortal. I always worry that sort of that was entertaining and kind of exciting for a while, but at some point it's going to catch up with Zlatan Ibrahimovic when he finds out, maybe at 37, that he actually is mortal. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah, no, look, it could be like a really disastrous last act for him and for the Galaxy. And I think, definitely like the intelligent move is to really be cautious about how he's used, because I think, a huge part of it could be he's underestimating the physical rigors of this league. Like, we've seen a lot of players come from overseas and not really know what they're up against. And that's not even an MLS point. That's just like purely the geographic locations that you're playing at those times of the year. It's not even opposition oriented. It's just like physically this league takes a toll, and you do a ton of flying. And I think those are things that maybe he's not, fully versed in. And it's tough, we'll see what happens, but I agree with you. I think, there is a chance that this all blows up, and that would not be fun, which is why this kind of like early honeymoon period is super fun, because I'm just not even thinking about that yet.
He's also too tall for coach, right? So Zlatan has to get that upgrade, I think.
Yeah. I would be really alarmed if, I guess like the CBA, I don't know, we'll see. But it's going to be super weird if there's any situation where, like, I'm sitting next to Zlatan on, like, JetBlue. That'd be super great.
Be kind of cool, though, right?
Yeah, I'd be into that. That'd be fun.
More from Zach in just a moment, but first, today's Total Soccer Show is sponsored by Roughneck Scarves, longtime sponsor of the Total Soccer Show. Roughneck Scarves is the official scarf provider to US soccer. There is even a page on the Roughneck Scarves website, roughneckscarves.com, where they have all the different styles of US soccer scarf. There's one that says established 1776, which isn't technically true, but is kind of a cool look. There's one with a giant eagle spreading its wings across the one side of the scarf. There's another one with the US soccer logo, and it just says USWNT, and it has 3 stars on the other side. You can also design your own custom scarves at roughneckscarves.com. So we put the question out on Twitter. If you were to design a Roughneck scarf to represent the USA's 1-0 win over Paraguay, what would it look like? We got lots of answers. I actually had a hard time finding my 5 favourites because there are lots of good ones, but here they are. Seth Hynan says it would have Dave Sarachan working his shift at Subway, throwing away all the unused subs straight into the trash. C-Dub Esquire says, on one side is Sarachan holding onto his substitutes like Gollum holding onto the One Ring. The other side says, quote, there are competitive fixtures prior to 2022, people. Stop talking about 2022. Dan Gunn says the scarf would have a calendar to mark off the days until World Cup qualifying. I'm into that. Banquero Central says, it'd probably be on layaway till after the World Cup. Oh, that hurts, but it's pretty funny. Petrick says, a bunch of NYCFC fans looking at Tyler Adams in the USA kit thinking, yeah, all right, he's cool. If you'd like to actually design your own custom scarf, you really can do that at roughneckscarves.com. They take the design, they'll make it for you, they'll ship it to you. You can also, if you go to roughneckscarves.com, you can buy anything that you see in the Roughneck Scarves store, including all those US soccer scarves I mentioned at the top of this ad. And if you use the discount code Total Soccer Show, that's Total Soccer Show, you'll get 20% off anything that you buy at roughneckscarves.com. Okay, back to my interview with Zack Goldman. So one player, as I understand it, there was another famous player who came to the Galaxy recently, Steven Gerrard, and your company, Common Goal, was involved in some of the promotion around Gerrard joining the LA Galaxy. Am I correct in thinking that?
That's correct. Yeah, we were really fortunate to be. It's actually like one of our first projects as a group, like we weren't even, we had a business formed, but we weren't like public about what we were yet. You know, my friend Nathan McVitie, Eric Beer, Maxi Rodriguez, we all have run kind of websites together at Football Report, Where Is Football. And, you know, we've kind of realized at some point that, wow, there's really a market to help teams with marketing and, you know, with these energy moments. And very fortunately and very kindly, you know, some of the guys at the Galaxy brought us in and had us, you know, help them with that marketing plan. And that was just such a rush. And on a personal level, it was super funny because Steven Gerrard was coming from Liverpool to Los Angeles, and I very shortly thereafter went from LA to move to Liverpool. So it was like a very strange reversal. I felt like I was working on my own campaign. But yeah, that was great. And the guys at the Galaxy are super fun to work with. And yeah, it was just really validating and super exciting to feel like, oh, okay, we can do this. And it really gave us kind of the impetus to start our own thing.
So, yeah, some people may know those names from Twitter, right? Eric Beard, Nathan McVitie, Maxi Rodriguez.
Totally.
What I find really interesting is that I'd say maybe 5 or so years ago, you could know those names and think, oh, yeah, those guys like write football content, right? And you could be just another one of those like freelance football writer guys, which, you know, there are a lot of those guys around. And I enjoy a lot of people's work, but it's a tough business, right? It's really hard to make a good living doing that. So it seems to me that you guys have almost sort of found a loophole in the system that rather than like chasing around some like freelance columns and this and that, you've decided to take your, I want to call it like, and I mean this very respectfully, like hipster cred in a way, or soccer fandom cred, and then present that to more mainstream companies like soccer clubs or brands and say, hey, we can help you present this image correctly. Does that sound about right? Was that the thinking with Common Goal?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very, very kind. I think it's the first time I've gotten that kind of credit, and I appreciate that. That was very nice of you. No, I mean, I think we all like we still consider ourselves writers in a lot of ways. Like a lot of what we do day to day is we write for companies and brands, whether that's copywriting or we script content or, you know, we work behind the scenes and do different things that rely on kind of the exact same faculties that you would have if you were, you know, writing freelance content for websites in a lot of ways. We do a lot of research and, you know, there are a lot of things that we do that like we don't put on our website and that aren't public facing. And,
yes,
you know, I think a lot of this industry is literally just about speaking authentically. There's a lot of people in this country, especially who, you know, don't understand how diverse the soccer scene is. You know, it's like the biggest league in this country is Liga MX. The biggest team is, you know, the Mexican national team. There's a whole lot of soccer here that's not, you know, branded in any way, that's not quote unquote owned by any league. There's a lot of amazing grassroots soccer going on. There's a lot of people who aren't getting looks, who deserve looks, you know, both on the field and off. There's a lot of talented people. And we have a soccer ecosystem like nowhere else on earth. And so for us, you know, it's exciting to speak authentically to that. And it's exciting when companies and brands are able to diagnose that they need that help, because in a lot of cases, they're not speaking to the right audiences. So for us, you know, it's kind of a natural fit from going from a website where we felt like we were catering to a bunch of different crowds, whether that's people who wanted more artistic soccer content, people who wanted more long-form reads. You know, Eric started a Football Report in 2009 when he was, you know, in a dorm room, and we all found each other through the internet because we were looking for different kinds of soccer content that really didn't exist in a lot of places. And so, you know, I don't know that there's a lot of people who've been doing that and a lot of people who could certainly do what we do. And I think we just kind of, I think we found a little bit of a gap in the market, but I think more importantly, clubs and brands started to understand, oh, there's a huge amount of opportunity that we're leaving on the table here. And they started to really address those and like self-audit in a really responsible and intelligent way. And I think, you know, they deserve a lot of credit for that too. So, you know, we feel really lucky to be in the space, and I'm super excited to see, you know, where we go from here. And hopefully it's up. Hopefully, you know, we keep growing.
So is it that sort of, you said clubs or brands would self-audit and then come to you, so then they sort of trust you to do that sort of authentic representation. Is there ever a situation where it's the other way around, where it's sort of like you have to persuade the brand or the club to sort of embrace the authenticity because that is the wiser path?
Totally, 100%. I mean, usually you have like an ally. Like I worked at, you know, Liverpool Football Club for a while, and you know they're, you know, an amazing place. I don't have anything but positive words to say about them. They're amazing. And, it really was one person in the office who believed in me and who wanted to speak to, an American audience in a really authentic, direct way during their upcoming American tour. He brought me in and, kind of from there we built something that's much bigger now that the rest of the club believes in. And I think you need that, but we've certainly come to teams and pitched, blindly and said, listen, we see this gap. We really want to help with it. Maybe you're aware of it. Maybe you're not. I think in a lot of cases we've given away a lot of free advice, which I think is just part of this job. Like part of pitching is that you need to sell an idea. And sometimes that idea, you're not a necessary component to execute on it. So in a lot of cases we've said, hey, have you guys thought of this? And they've gone, nope. And then just kind of taken the idea and run with it. And that's fine. That's part of this industry, right? Is like, you're like, I'm sure we have, taken ideas from people, like not intentionally, but I'm sure we've taken things that, people have done that has influenced us. We've created something different on it. We've given it a different spin. And like, that's just the nature of ideas. If like you want to be super honest and transparent about it, it's like, this is an economy where people sort of take influence from each other and hopefully develop something unique and cool and authentic to them. But I mean, realistically, like the nature of this business is such that we do a lot of kind of talking to clubs, not necessarily in a way where we've been invited in the room to pitch, but we, sometimes they say, hey, it's a great idea, come on board and help us out. But a lot of times it's just sort of not the right time or there's not budget, and all those things are understandable.
So one thing of yours that got kind of borrowed was the name of the company. I noticed that you called the company Common Goal, and then not so long ago, Juan Mata launched a sort of initiative called Common Goal, which encouraged, I can't remember the percentage, but it encourages professional players to give a percentage of their wages to charity. And I'm assuming just by coincidence, he also named his company Common Goal. So can you can you describe the face that you and Eric and Nathan and Maxi made when you found out what Juan Mata had named his initiative?
I'm actually not at liberty to say anything now. I think Juan Mata is a super cool guy, and what he's doing is super awesome, and it's not something we ever would want to stand in the way of. I mean, a huge part of our own business is doing nonprofit work and work for charity and partnering, with different groups through Where's Football, and it's something we're super proud of. I mean, we've done work in the past for Street Football World, who are helping Juan Mata with that side of things, and it is what it is. Like it was a good name, and that's how the world works. It's something where like you can lose sleep over things that you can't control, or you can kind of like say more power to everyone. And I don't think success is like a zero-sum game. I think they can be super successful in their space, and hopefully we can be in ours. And I mean, Juan Mata seems like a dope guy who I would love to work with in some way one day. So I mean, it's super funny that you say that, but I think, this is it goes to show how small the soccer world is, right? That like two companies can know about each other and do, pretty different things in the space. But I think we definitely have respect for each other, and I hope they do awesome stuff. I'm sure they will. Yeah,
I love that attitude, Zach. That's the way to do it, I think. So there may be two common goals, but there's only one. Where is football? Which I think is where I first became aware of yourself and Eric. I've got to say, I love the site. For those who haven't seen it, it's essentially, actually, I'm not sure I have a full understanding of it. But the way I look at it is, it's just great photos of soccer happening all over the world, and it's sort of not as standard as just here's a professional field, right? It's like it could be someone's pickup game, it could be in the middle of the snow, all that kind of stuff. But there seems to be something special about it that I can't quite put my finger on. Is there what am I missing about Where Is Football? Why do I keep going back to it?
Thank you. No, I mean you that was totally great. I think that was addressed really well. I mean our view of it is that it's a celebration of kind of like the awe, and inspiration of soccer in our lives, right? Like football is a beautiful thing that happens in every corner of the world. It's something that has inspired us all in different ways, watching, playing, helping out, volunteering our time. Everyone has a story. Everyone has a way of participating in this game. They have a way of, reflecting on it. We all have different ways that we became involved and became aware. And that's really the storytelling side. And so I think every picture, you know, it's, again, like very saccharine idea to say, okay, every picture tells 1,000 words, but we really feel that way, you know, like every picture that is, you know, given to us, you know, that we're trusted with, usually people, you know, use the hashtag where's football. And for us, like, we're more proud of that hashtag than of our account. Like, we're very proud of the fact that there's a community that wants to share their experiences. You know, it's something that for us is really special to know that, like, okay, this is a discussion and this is like a sharing exercise that's happening because people want to have that kind of form of connection. You know, there's no, like, we don't like monetize the site really. We don't like do anything that kind of makes it a brand. And I think that's, you know, some would say that's a huge missed opportunity for a marketing agency, which is like fair enough. But yeah. I think from our perspective, like, this isn't something that we own, right? It's right. Like, this is something that we're helping facilitate. And to the extent that like people want to join us, we're open to it, right? Like, ideally that's just person to person and it's just someone sharing. But yeah, of course, I mean, if someone came to us and said, hey, we really want to take this discussion to the next level, like, that would be great, because I think it's one of the last, for me, it's something where we wouldn't be doing this and we wouldn't be investing our time if we didn't really believe that like people got something from it. Yeah. And I think in this case that we believe in that because we get something from it ourselves. Like, I feel like we're the biggest beneficiaries of seeing, you know, every day you refresh your Instagram feed and we've got photos coming to us from like Bangladesh, China, you know, and then right in our own backyard. And we've made so many friendships from seeing a photo pop up and just be like, oh, wow, weird. Like, we're in Portland. Like, let's go meet this person. And yeah, it's been crazy. Like, to that experience is like exactly why I love football. And I think, you know, for us, it's a really super special thing that we hope continues to live on. So yeah. Check it out if you guys haven't seen it. There's my plug.
Lovely. Yeah, so it really resonates with me just because, like, I moved here to Richmond, Virginia from England, you know, without really knowing anyone except my future wife. And just because there was a soccer league here, that's how I've sort of made almost all of my friendships start with the soccer league, right? It's where I met Taylor and why we started this show. So I feel like there are millions of stories out there of that exact thing where soccer has positively influenced people's lives.
Totally, 100%. And kind of our next step is that we're partnering up with this is a world exclusive right here. Right. We're partnering up with a bunch of with a few really cool you know, NGOs and nonprofits and different organizations that are committed to bettering people's lives through the game. And I think really for us that's the next step that we really wanted to take. We weren't kind of organized. We didn't have enough hours in the day to really make it happen before. And now, you know, it's going to become a huge part of where's football going forward. And I think, you know, for us, we're privileged and lucky enough to be able to sign up for a soccer league, right? We're privileged and lucky enough to be able to travel. Like, we've had those experiences, and, you know, there's a ton of this planet that, you know, whether it's, you know, refugees in certain countries or, you know, whatever the case may be, people in extreme poverty, there's a lot of people who don't have that experience. And I think, you know, more than anything, we've been able to use Where's Football as a reflection of how lucky we are. And you know, we really want to make sure that this is an experience that's attainable for everyone. And, you know, to the extent that there are organizations out there committed to bettering people's lives through soccer, like, we're on board. Like, give us a call, let us know how we can help, and, you know, we're there.
I love it. I look forward to seeing what happens then. That sounds like that's coming soonish.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. In the next few months, we'll be able to kind of, you know, start putting stuff out there. And, but yeah, stuff is definitely in the works and we're super excited about it.
All right. I'm excited for you and for the project as well. Another thing.
Thank you so much.
Final thing I want to talk to you about, Zach, is you mentioned that, you know, you spent some time in Liverpool. It sounded like you were working for Liverpool Football Club, on some sort of, Liverpool in America type, outreach, I guess, or strategizing.
Yeah.
And I get the impression that you spend a lot of time sort of traveling across the Atlantic. I think you're an Oxford United fan as well. Is that correct? So
that's correct.
I'm always interested to talk to people who have a sort of transatlantic view of soccer, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And I'm always excited to talk to people with sort of any interest in the England national team. I was kind of twist Taylor's arm sometimes and get him to talk, but I'm always excited to talk to anyone who has a sort of an angle on the English national team. And I feel like since you've spent time in England, you'll be familiar with the English media, right? And how that can be maybe a positive and negative for the national team. And as we're getting into this build up to the World Cup, the thing I'm starting to see is excitement about England again tinged with some complaining, but it seems to me it's part of the whole World Cup build-up where everybody talks themselves into thinking that England is actually a very good football team and has a chance at the World Cup. I don't know if you've heard us on the show recently, but I've been really excited just about the fact that England are sort of have a system and they're deciding to just commit to that rather than to players. So I wanted to get an outside view and ask you, is this more of the same? Is this just building up hopes about England only to be smashed in the summer? Or does this actually feel different?
Oh, man, my English friends are going to kill me if I give the wrong answer.
There's no correct answer, if that helps.
Here's what I would say. I think the future is extraordinarily bright. I think the teams that have been coming through the youth ranks have been obviously tremendous. I'm someone who I don't have a huge I don't spend a huge amount of time looking at the national team. I spend a lot more time looking at club football there. But I think this team is extremely talented. I think everyone who's in the squad right now is like, I think everyone's going to get sucked in. Anyone who's remotely connected to England and who wants to see them do well is definitely going to be seduced by dreams of World Cup glory. I don't think they're going to win the World Cup. I think that this team is certainly one of the most talented England teams that has existed since I've been alive. I don't know that they'll, be an Italia 90 type thing. I don't know that they will be kind of Sven's side that looked so good up until the quarterfinals a few times. But I think the talent is there. I think for me, a big question mark is Southgate and how he uses that talent. There's a really interesting video done by the guys at Football Whispers that was talking about how good Pope has been in goal, for instance. And, statistics are extremely difficult, and I'm far from an expert when it comes to, goalkeepers, but I do think they made some interesting points about really getting me to look deeper into, okay, which of these players are actually in form right now? And I think that there's a spine to this England team that is extremely good. I think there's a lot of players who play at the same club, which is a really interesting form of chemistry that I think manifests itself in really powerful ways in tournament football a lot of times. If you look at the Spain team that were successful. And I think those are all great signs, but I don't know how he's going to actually line up. I think, 19 or 20 or 21 of the 23 are definitely, for me, in 10 in terms of the players who are going to be on the plane. But I think in terms of a starting 11, I can see a few different things happening, and, I'm not sure how they're going to line up. I'm kind of curious, your perspective, not to flip it back on you, but as someone who probably follows it a lot closer, how you feel, if you do feel as confident as a lot of my friends feel, because it seems like everyone, 3 months to the World Cup, people are starting to get excited, and it does feel like there is a wave of enthusiasm that I'm not totally swept up in at all.
So the thing that I'm excited about this time is it seems that we're not, England, that's we, I guess, are not just relying on one player, right? It's not that there used to be this feeling of just Michael Owen's really fast, no one will catch him, we'll score a bunch of goals, we'll do great. Or David Beckham takes these beautiful free kicks and hits these great crosses. It's all on him and we can do it. It's almost like the metatarsal curse, right? Once you put all the stuff on that one player, they get the metatarsal injury. Or it's like Steven Gerrard is this warrior and we're going to make sure that we put him in a position to succeed. He'll fire us through to the late stages of the knockout rounds. And this time around, it feels to me that Southgate has really decided that, okay, we're going to play three at the back. We're going to play out of the back. We're going to pick, essentially, I think he's talked about picking players with pace. He just wanted a team that has pace. And it seems more systemic than pinning your hopes on. Are you familiar with Roy of the Rovers, the comic book?
I am. Melchester.
Yeah, exactly right. So it's more systemic than pinning your hopes on one heroic player to win the game for you. And weirdly, that's what gives me a lot of optimism. Dele Alli, who I think was kind of in danger of being one of those guys that all the hopes get pinned on, was more or less dropped for the last two friendlies because it just kind of the system worked better with Oxlade-Chamberlain on one side and Jesse Lingard on the other side, neither of whom are kind of what sort of starry players in the way that Dele Alli has the possibility to be. And that just gives me a lot of confidence in a way that I didn't used to have. But then the reason I wanted to run it by you is because I'm always wary of talking myself into being optimistic because I did it for 2012, 2014 and 2016.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really astute point. I think tournament football is super weird, and if you do everything by the book, you do everything according to who is the best player. If you pick the team like it's FIFA ratings, you're probably not going to be as successful as if you look for chemistry. And if you look for, there's a ton of players over the years who have, all you have to do is look at the cult heroes who have had amazing World Cups who, there's a ton of players who, all things being equal, you're just playing them, and putting them out in a video game or in Football Manager, like you wouldn't be picking them, right? I don't think anyone would say that Jesse Lingard should be picked over Dele Alli on talent. Like, I don't think that. And I think that they're certainly different players, but in terms of just star power, you're absolutely right. But I think there are different factors that go into it. Realistically, it's 7 matches to glory. Like, there's a lot that goes into it that's kind of weird ingredients. And I think, finding success is there's no exact recipe for it, but I think you have to think a little bit outside the box in a tournament. And, we'll see what happens. But I definitely, I guess I'm kind of going to be forced into rooting for England this summer because I don't really have a team there.
Just by default. Actually, do you mind if we talk US men's national team just for a quick second? This show has gone deep into the US for the last 3 shows, so I don't want to analyse the Paraguay game so much. I'm more, if you'll indulge me, and it's fine, if you don't want to do this, I totally understand it, right? So just, I want to give you that out. But from a sort of branding strategy perspective, is there anything that you can see that in this weird moment that the US Soccer Federation is in, right? New president, no coach, no World Cup. Is there anything that US Soccer could do as a federation to sort of reach out to fans and make them feel better about the team and the federation?
A million things they could do. A million. This is the part where, I definitely, it's not like me talking with a business hat on. It's 100% me talking as a fan who feels, alienated and ignored. I think we just went through the craziest period I could possibly imagine U.S. soccer ever having. We missed a World Cup. We had an incredibly acrimonious electoral process that was a complete circus. We had all of these things happen. We've had a GM position floated that hasn't even been defined properly. It's just been called not a technical director role. You are basically in a giant holding pattern where everyone is disappointed, and the vice president, who is culpable in many ways for what's happened, has been given a promotion. Dave Sarakin has remained on staff and been given a promotion, albeit an interim one. And there's a lot that's transpiring, or on the other side, not happening fast enough, that needs to be addressed. And there's zero attempt to do it. U.S. Soccer has sent out more fundraising emails and more discounts off shirts for beating Paraguay in a friendly than they have actually putting out substantive messaging that basically tells people, hey, we're going to really redouble our efforts to do something different here and to make sure that this never happens again. Or alternative, another direction that would be suitable is saying, hey, we know faith in us has been shaken a little bit. Let's work on addressing that. Let's do a fan forum. Let's do a Facebook Live talking about this with our president, who's, been elected for over a month and, we haven't heard from him. All of these things, I think, are so powerful for fans. Connecting with American Outlaws would be a huge step in the right direction in terms of American Outlaws did their own straw poll. They did their own kind of caucus, and Carlos Cordero didn't win that. And I think that's a point of energy that needs to be used productively and proactively, and it hasn't been done. I think the biggest thing is that we just played a friendly in Cary, North Carolina, because we were afraid of what it was going to look like in a giant stadium that was going to be half empty. And instead of being afraid of that, why don't we give out a ton of tickets and make them super cheap? Why don't you sell out a giant stadium and show that there is still, that desire to have fans pack the building? On the same day that Mexico gets 70,000 people in Jerry World in Dallas. All of these things are huge. To me, they're no-brainers, right? To me, it's just this is an obvious way to market your team. And I think, we've really been disappointing to me, not just on the field, but off. And the hard part about that to digest is that I never thought I was going to see us miss a World Cup. And now that I've seen us miss a World Cup, I'm not convinced I'm not going to see it again, because it's there's, I think we have a super talented group coming through. I think the next generation of players are going to be awesome. I know the World Cup is expanding its field. It seems unlikely we're going to go through this again, but there's no impetus to address systemic problems. And that goes, way beyond discussions of pro-rel, pay-to-play, like all these are incredibly important things, but ones that aren't going to be solved overnight or even in the next decade probably. The things that are going to be solved overnight and should be are how you talk to fans, right? And that's something that I really haven't seen any momentum on.
So from my perspective as both a fan and I'd call us, the Total Soccer Show, like semi-members of the media, if that makes sense. Like we're not Sports Illustrated, but we do some digging to try and find some stuff out. And we like it. We like information, essentially. We like information we can work with. I just wish there was more stuff communicated. I wish they said we are 100% going to name a coach or we're going to name a GM on this date, and at least we can all circle that on our calendars and just know what is happening, right? Like we're all assuming that there'll be a coach named after the World Cup, but I don't think there's been an official sort of statement or release that said precisely that, so that we can all be like, okay, we can nail this down. We know exactly what's happening. I've seen the rumours in, I don't know if you saw this as well, there were rumours in the Brazilian paper Globo Esporto that maybe the US national team would play in Copa America 2019 in Brazil. But there's been no official announcement whether we're going to do that or not, right? So the uncertainty makes me nervous, I think.
Totally. And that's like a very valid perspective to have. And I think it's a valid perspective as a fan, but also as a media member. Like we need an informed media. I mean, this is a macro point that goes well beyond sports, but we need an informed media and responsible media in order to, hold representatives accountable. And in this case, there's a media architecture that, I think this is a negative point. People can disagree, but I think it's very much, to me, if you don't have an extremely large outlet, you're not getting paid regularly to cover this team. It's extremely hard, not just to find the information, but really to people are really sacrificing for the greater good here to try and keep this federation open and transparent and honest. I have a lot of friends who devote hours and hours and hours of their time, spend time away from work and family trying to cover this team. And I think, on a level of respect, there's a lot that this federation could do to kind of extend a hand. I'm not saying reveal all your cards, but a lot of people do this thing for the love of the game. And I think the least that a federation can do right now at this time where people's patience is running really thin and where their faith is shaken is to say, listen, we're all on the same team here, right? You cover us in a fair way, fair enough. Let us help you do that, right? And that would go a long way. As someone who's not a member of the media, but who has a lot of friends who are, that would go a long way for me.
So maybe they could adopt the common goal motto of, quote, we're in this together, unquote.
There you go. Love that plug. Yeah, no, I mean, that's the way I think they need to start approaching it.
All right, Zach, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. Genuinely really enjoyed talking to you. I think we spoke on the phone maybe a few years ago, right? Maybe for some Paste magazine stuff, but I've sort of enjoyed the interview, just having a chat, getting to know you, as well as talking some soccer stuff. I feel like if we had met up, these would have been the topics we would have covered anyway over a drink, maybe.
Exactly, 100%. Thank you so much for having me. This has been super awesome.
Very much appreciate it. All right, Zach, take care.
Take care. Thanks so much.